Hello and welcome to Mindful Living, where we explore the art of living with the intention, balance, and inner peace. I am Avik, your host, guiding you through conversations on health, meditation, mental well being, mindfulness, and the mind body connection. Each episode features expert insights to help you grow, heal, and thrive. So, take a deep breath, relax, and join us on this journey to a more mindful and fulfilling life. So, let's get started.
Hello and welcome, listeners, to the Mindful Living podcast. I'm your host, Sana, and today we are joined by a very special guest with us, Erin Harrington, founder of Soul Values and author of The Whole Life Planner. Erin helps achieve high achievers find balance and wholeness by aligning work with well-being, holistic well-being. Her personal journey from burnout to thriving inspires her mission to empower others. So, listeners, let's get ready and dive into today's discussion. So, Erin, welcome to the show, and it's an absolute honor to have you with us.
Sana, it's such a great pleasure to be here with you. Thank you.
Lovely, lovely. So, Erin, why don't you share your transformation story from burnout to how you found your balance and purpose?
Yeah, sure. I'd love to do that. So, I've experienced two distinct burnouts that shape the work that I do today. The first one came when I was at the peak of my career. I was helping to lead a startup to a successful IPO. I was their top performing sales achiever. Year over year, I had the kind of success that people dream of. Top sales leader, living in the beautiful San Francisco Bay Area. I was on the verge of getting married. Life from the outside seemed perfect, but beneath that success, I was crumbling. The constant grind, the relentless pressure to keep achieving, it just caught up with me. So the first clue was that I developed severe back pain, fatigue, and just some cognitive changes, and I couldn't push through it anymore. I actually took a leave of absence from work, and something miraculous happened. My partner and I drove from San Francisco to Alaska, and we camped in the wilderness for 8 weeks during my leave of absence. And by the end of that trip, my back pain was completely gone. And I realized that slowing down and reconnecting with nature had reset something deep inside of me. I returned to work, but soon thereafter, I retired at 30. I just wasn't willing to keep up with the grind. But my story didn't end there. A few years later, actually more like 5 years later, my second child was born. And it was an easy birth, actually, very easy, just a few minutes. But afterwards, I had some very difficult health experiences. And ultimately, I was, diagnosed with mitochondrial disease, along with a trifecta of autonomic nervous system disorders, Ehlers-Danlos, a whole bunch of kind of an obscene number of health conditions. But it was during this phase when I was dealing with the second burnout related to my health fallout that I had a really interesting breakthrough, and had to do with my neurologist. Actually, she triggered it. Every time I saw this specialist in autonomic nervous system disorders, she'd start by asking, "How's your stress?" And instead of asking, "How are your symptoms?" which was like the third question, I finally asked her why. Why was she asking about stress as the first question? And she and I had a really deep conversation about how my autonomic nervous system was sort of in overdrive, right? And that my stress levels were a clear indicator of how well I was feeling and how well my symptoms were. So that to her was more important than the actual symptoms because it was an indicator of my progress. And so, I in that moment realized that there was an opportunity to hack my stress response to improve my well-being.
Mhm.
And knowing that I had done it earlier in my sales career when I took that leave of absence, it just made a lot of sense. And so I set forth to basically just do a lot of cognitive retraining. And that is what led me to doing the work that I do today. I didn't want to just survive, I wanted to thrive. I realized that I could, in fact, rewire my brain and my nervous system. And that's how I developed my purpose elevated approach, soul values, the company was born, and then also my book just last year, The Whole Life Planner, which is more of a low content sort of book to keep you moving forward every single day from stress to overwhelm and ease,
That
all
is
by hacking their stress response. So that's my passion and my purpose. I'm very much living my purpose right now.
that is really, really empowering, and it is so fulfilling to know that you found your purpose and currently you are living it. So that is really, really empowering, Erin. And thank you so much for sharing with all our listeners.
Thank you.
Okay, so as you mentioned about purpose elevated method, one of the things which I find fascinating about this, of course, P3, as it is called, purpose elevated method. So, could you walk us through this method and what are its core principles? How can it benefit busy leaders and entrepreneurs or professionals to find their balance and purpose?
Right. Well, thank you for bringing that up. So, purpose elevated is a much bigger sort of teaching concept, and I'll just give you a highlight of it. Basically, if you align with your values, and I call them soul values, if you align with your soul values and your purpose, which is a lot easier than you might think using some of the prompts that I have in my book, if you align with those things, you naturally are helping to get your brain into that more relaxed parasympathetic state. So effectively, you're rewiring your stress response by aligning with your values and your purpose. And so that's what the system, if I work with my one-on-one clients, we get very deep into how to integrate this purpose elevated system. But for clients that aren't working with me one-on-one, they can use tools like the daily pages that are in my book, and I'll share that a little bit later in this. But essentially, there's 10 very simple prompts on a daily basis that help get your brain into that state of purpose, peace, and productivity that we all want to achieve in life.
Hmm, sounds interesting. And you also have mentioned that P3 method helps people transform the stress response into a relaxation response. And this is something very, very groundbreaking. This sounds very groundbreaking. So can you explain how that shift happens and how it impacts our daily life, especially in high pressure situations?
Yeah, so at a really high level, I just want to share a little bit more about this autonomic nervous system, the heart of the things that I do, the heart of actually my well-being, to be very honest with you. So we have our central nervous system, and we also have our autonomic nervous system that some people are less familiar with. The autonomic nervous system really controls all the automatic parts of our body, right? So blood pressure, heart rate, temperature, hormone regulation, communication, all sorts of brain related things like cognition, decision making, all of those things. And so what I learned was that within your autonomic nervous system, you have the sympathetic, which is the fight or flight that was designed to, originally help us sort of escape tigers, that sort of thing, right? The initial stress response. And then there's the parasympathetic state. That's the relaxation state. It's also known as the success state, or at least that's what I call it. And many people refer to it as the executive state, because you get so much more done in that parasympathetic state. So, just to ask you or your audience this question, how have you seen stress impact your body? Like when you think of an experience this week, for example, has there been anything that felt stressful to you? And did it affect your cognition or maybe your heart rate, how you felt, perhaps even your vision, all of those things?
So physically, of course, there has been some long-term effects, but I think the most immediate ones were a disturbed sleep cycle, constant, anxiety about, let's say, especially if I talk about the work-related pressures, or let's say if I have some targets to fill, or maybe that dreadful Monday meeting. I could not enjoy my Sundays. I could not enjoy time out with my family, and a kind of withdraw from any public interactions or social events. These kind of things have happened, and I'll be very very frank. And of course, yeah, the major effect was on the sleep cycle.
Right. And that's fascinating to me. Again, well, first, thank you for sharing that story, but you're not alone. Everyone experiences stress impacting our bodies this way because it's an inherent part of our system. And so I completely relate to you. I've experienced all of those things, and it goes back to the autonomic nervous system. And what I just believe very firmly is you don't have to sacrifice your well-being to be successful. In fact, you can turn these stressors
Mhm.
into a catalyst for growth. So sauna, for example, one of the things that I would recommend, that for someone who is experiencing some of the challenges like you are, is to on a daily basis just do a little check-in with yourself, right? Even simple things like, and these are on my daily pages, but simple prompts like I'm grateful for, or daily affirmation, or my soul goal for today. Those things, although they're so simple, they actually put your brain directly in that clear, parasympathetic, executive state where you're able to think more clearly and get more done, and you sleep better, right? So, all of those things that are sort of off kilter when you're in that stress state,
Mhm.
suddenly start to feel a little bit better. And ultimately, what I believe very firmly in, but forget daily affirmations and things like this. If
Mhm.
there's one thing that I want to impart upon people, it's that if you do more things that you love, you will A, experience less stress, and B, you'll feel better. You'll physically feel better. And three, you'll be more successful with greater ease.
Hmm. Really helpful. Thank you so much, Erin. Thank you. Lovely. So your book, The Whole Life Planner, what makes it stand out from the other tools available on the market with all the self-assessment or the setting integrated or holistic goals?
Right. I think what the feedback that I get from the market, at least, is that this truly is a holistic view of your life. I believe firmly that you cannot separate work and personal domains. You're one body, one person. You have to sort of look at it as a big picture.
Mhm.
And so that's what I'm hoping to achieve with your listeners.
Lovely. And you talk a lot about the concept of wholeness, especially in relation to work life harmony. How do you define wholeness, and why is it so critical for those of us striving to achieve harmony between our personal and professional lives?
Yeah, wholeness to me is a state of ease where you are experiencing a sense of balance between work and personal pursuits.
Mhm.
And so while that doesn't necessarily remove all stressors from your life, because stressors exist, right? It
Mhm.
does make everything feel better. For example, I have clients that say that they're experiencing wholeness, even though they're still facing some big challenges in life or with work. And so it's more of a state of mind, really a state of peace, and
Mhm.
that has to do with sort of reframing success on a daily basis and practicing these habits that, um, like I mentioned in the whole life planner, these habits that are looking at the big picture, your personal domains, your work domains, all of the goals, the main goals that you have, the values that you have. And, as we started this conversation, we talked about soul values and purpose and how that sort of helps. When you align with those things using tools that are in my book and also, watching from some of my free workshops and things like this, you'll start to experience more peace. And that just effectively means you're going to be more productive and happier. At least that's what I see with my clients.
Lovely. It's really lovely, Erin. And uh, this has been such a valuable conversation, Erin. So, as we wrap up, what's the one key takeaway you'd like our listeners to walk away with today?
Yeah, I think the most important thing that I'd like people to walk away with is that stressors are real, but stress and the impact of stress is a choice. And, burnout, if you're already experiencing burnout, it's not a crisis, it's an opportunity. Overwhelm is an opportunity. It can
Mhm.
be a wake up call that you need to reconnect with your purpose and your values to achieve wholeness across work and life. And that sort of state of well being despite challenges.
Hmm. And how can our audience connect with you further? Where can they learn more about soul values, the whole life planner, and the other amazing resources you offer, Erin?
Right. So I'd first recommend that your audience have a look at my free daily pages. These are the 10 prompts from my whole life planner that I encourage people to do every single day. They're 5-minute practices or less, and they simply retrain your brain and nervous system for that peace, prosperity, and success. They're rooted in neuroplasticity and they're designed for high achievers who also want to have a sense of balance, like your audience. So those daily pages they can receive by going to www.soulvalues.com/daily pages. I
Mhm.
also have a separate download that may be interesting for your audience, and that's related to balance. I have a life assessment at a glance
Mhm.
that's a couple worksheets from my book. You can also download that at www.soulvalues.com/promo. And that's something, that particular set of pages I recommend clients look at every 90 days or so. And, if anyone would like more information about me, my book, just head over to soulvalues.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn, and that will be in the show notes. And you can also find me on Facebook, and that will be in the show notes as well. Um, what have I missed, Sana?
Any giveaways or any exciting events you have which you would like to share with our listeners?
Right. So I have two things that are coming up. I'm doing a workshop in about a week, and that will be also listed on my website at soulvalues.com. I'm doing a workshop that I'll probably be running every 2 weeks or so. And that's related to aligning with your values and learning how to use this daily page system in a little bit more depth. And then coming up in the next month or so, there's going to be a workshop related to goal setting, aligned goal setting. And so that will also be available. If you look at my website or subscribe to my newsletter, you'll be able to see all of those things. And of course, you can reach out to me at erin@soulvalues.com if you have additional questions or want to pick my brain.
Great. We'll have all of these details mentioned in the show notes along with this episode on your favorite podcast platform, listeners. And Erin, thank you so much for sharing your story, your expertise, and these incredible insights about purpose, life planning, and also the great work you're doing with Soul Values with all of us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Salma. I'm very grateful for you.
And to our listeners, thank you to all of you for tuning into this episode of The Mindful Living. I hope you found today's conversation as inspiring and fulfilling as I did. So don't forget to check out Erin's work or connect with her using the show notes and start exploring the tools that can help you create a life of balance and purpose. Stay tuned for our next episode where we'll dive even deeper into wellness, self discovery, and intentional living. Until then, take care of yourselves and live mindfully.